through these fields of destruction. Baptisms of fire, I've witnessed your suffering as the battle raged high, and though it hurt me so bad.
Welcome, hi, we're just talking off camera. Welcome to Voices of the Republic. I'm Mike Chisholm. Thank you for joining me today. I have several guests that will be chatting about a variety of things, but first and foremost, I'd like to make a couple of quick announcements. On Wednesday nights from 8:30 to 9:30 on this same channel, Channel 12, called Wednesday Night Live with Ralph Lillig. I would encourage you all to tune in. It's another live show. Also, there's a class called Rules for Radicals, which is quite interesting. I guess this is on the opposite side of those that, well, in any case, at 150 North Main from noon till sometime it goes to about 2 o'clock. It's called Rules for Radicals, ran by Ron Clayson. We have a really good time when we're there. I would invite you guys to join. Anyways, what happened yesterday in Boston at the marathon, I'm sure everyone out there has already heard about it, is just unbelievable. Many people say that, well, we were just waiting for it to happen. As of right now, I guess as about an hour ago, I checked, and they said that there are really no suspects that have been arrested in conjunction with what happened. But we're going to have some guests here, which I do, and we're going to talk about it, about our security in our community, in our state, what laws have passed or are pending legislation to pass in helping our community to be safer, our state to be safer, our nation. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guests. To my left, I have Steve Blair. Thank you for joining me.
You bet.
I have Senator Jim Guthrie. Thank you for joining me,
Good to be
sir.
here, Mike.
And I have Mike Todd.
Good seeing you, Mike.
And possibly, shortly, the mayor will show up. He's scheduled to show up, but I know he's a busy man, and at times he can be late. Let me pose this question to you guys, and jump in whenever you're ready. Did we even think that we'd have this kind of terrorist? And it is a terrorist attack, guys. It's not a disaster. It's a terrorist attack. Do you think we'd have one of these, or?
Well, there's been warnings. Actually, Iran itself has warned our government months ago that there were going to be attacks like this to take place. And the head of the Iranian Guard has stated more than once that there were going to be attacks on soft targets such as this to take place. Not saying that there's any evidence whatsoever that this is an Iranian attack. However, that because of the complacency of people and because of our so-called affairs, the way that we've treated other people in the world, that things like this are going to happen to us.
Well, some people, well, the media, and we all know that you can't trust the media. This is why there's shows like this. You can trust me. The media, some of the media outlets are now saying that, well, we always push the issue that it's Middle Eastern or some foreign country that's attacking America. Some of the media now is pushing and saying, well, maybe it's some right-wing extremist or a patriot group. You know, because they're saying, they're basically saying, since April 15th, you had Oklahoma City bombing. April 15th, you had Waco, I believe. I may be wrong on that one. And it goes on and on. So here's April 15th, another bombing. So do any of you believe it's a local patriot, local when I say, you know, a patriot or a right-wing extremist group? Any comment, Jim?
You know, when you bring up the April 15th, of course, is tax day, and may or may not be some connection there. But if you look at the pattern of terrorism, 9/11 and things like that, they do try to pick something that's symbolic, and certainly they had a 2-for-1, I guess. Whoever perpetrated it. There's a tax day and a traditional thing like the Boston Marathon. You know, it's one of the great recognizable institutions, I guess, of the country. That and the New York Marathon. I mean, those are classic events, and so you do wonder if whether the motivation or the people that did this is from domestic or foreign or whatever it might be. There may be, you know, that may be what's driving it, is a date or an event or whatever. Certainly seems to be.
Well, you know, it appears that we're thinking like Steve was saying about the Iranians. I've had several emails about the population of Middle Eastern people, like in the colleges. I believe we have some Middle Easterns going to college here, and they're concerned about their safety. My concern also, besides that, was about the safety about them, because we know how people can react. They get really upset. Oh, you're Middle Eastern, just like, oh, you're Japanese during World War II. They were hunted down, and do we see any of that coming or happening here in America, in our country, in our town?
What's interesting, and I was reading the Korematsu case a couple months ago, where the Supreme Court ruled that interning the Japanese population was not unconstitutional. It was never ruled unconstitutional. And one of the things that's interesting, that because talking to my father, was a World War II veteran, that you can make a good argument that interning during that particular time, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and I'm sure you from Hawaii understand the significance of that, but it was viewed largely as, in the public, as being Pearl Harbored, that somehow you were cold-cocked, you were sucker punched, and it didn't sit well with the American people, and it was a direct attack on America. And if I'm not mistaken, I think peace talks were going on at that time between Japan. And you can make the case that, given the passions of the time, that something had to be done to protect Japanese Americans. Now, they were innocent victims. Actually, I had a girlfriend whose father grew up and was a young boy in the concentration camps years ago. But you can make the argument that, given the passions, that something had to be done to protect this population, that whether it was morally right, ethically right, you can beat that around, but the practicality of it was that it wasn't safe to be a Japanese American at that time. If something horrendous happened, you have to wonder about the safety of people who were Arab Americans or Arabs or students here. And I remember back to 1979 when Iran took our hostages, just being in a military town in San Bernardino and Norton Air Force Base, and how you were targeted. If you were an Arab American, you were here at flight school from wherever in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, that you really did have to watch your backside, because people were upset, and there's always going to be a group of people that are going to say an eye for an eye. I don't care how civilized you may think you are, that there is going to be a strong reaction, and I can understand it. I wouldn't sanction it, but let's not pretend that it's not a part of a real reality.
And this reality seems that it's starting to churn the American people even more towards the Middle Eastern people. And I know there's good people. I don't care what country you come from. There's good people in everything. But as these events happen, how do we curtail or lessen the angst, I guess would be a good word. Anyone?
Well, that's a tough one. You know, it's kind of like the old saying, if the solution was easy, we'd already solved it. And every time something like this happens, whether it's Columbine or Waco or the Oklahoma or whatever, we try to do things to mitigate the possibility of it happening again, but it's just very difficult. It's hard to continually be playing defense when you don't know what the offense is doing. And by that I mean, how do you check every little possibility and everything in every event? It's just really problematic to try to, you know, your earlier question about will it happen again, you know, I think the unfortunate likelihood is, yeah, it will. I mean, it's just a sad reality.
Without a solid police state, without some armed guard every block, unfortunately, things like this are going to happen. And it just, people are out there who want to do harm. And vigilance is just something that people are going to have to start doing. You know, in New York, people are being more vigilant. They do see someone who leaves a backpack or who is putting things, big packages, into garbage cans. They shouldn't be putting big packages in the garbage cans. They're making police, you know, calls to the police, you know, and you know, Boston wasn't considered a town that was considered a target, so people weren't really on a, you know, a heightened basis. So, you know, they didn't feel, you know, that it was necessary to have a police force that was, you know, out there day in and day out looking for this type of, you know, situation. Whereas, you know, this type of event being Patriots Day, you know, maybe they should have been a little bit more aware.
But as I believe, as more and more events like this unfold and happen, in a way, it's a double-edged sword, in my opinion. Which brings me up to this topic. Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
I know you're running late. You're a pretty busy guy.
I apologize. I'm running like crazy.
The question we'd like to ask, and I'd like to ask you, is what has the city of Pocatello been doing to help if we have a terrorist attack or we have a natural disaster? What things have been implemented or what things are being considered to be implemented?
Well, you're talking about two different things, a natural disaster or a terrorist attack. We've got two different things going. One's man-made, one isn't. With a natural disaster, we had that happen this last summer with the fires.
Charlotte fire. Yeah.
You know, the Charlotte fire, and that was a natural issue in reality. And what we had was we had our the fire departments responsible for putting together and organizing an emergency command center, and they're responsible to man that and make sure that everything and organize everything that goes out from there. There are definitely things in place, and there's programs out there in place for both, in reality, natural and man-made disasters. An EOC is formed. And
what's an EOC?
It's the Emergency Command Center.
Okay.
And that Emergency Command Center is staffed by, depending on where you are, if it's in the city limits, you'll have the mayor, and then the city departments will be department heads that will be in there, and they will be directing their departments in what to do, and everybody will be working through the mayor and the city council. The mayor is really the one that will be taking care of that in the city limits. When it's in a county, you have the county commissioners, and usually the county commissioners will yield that to the sheriff, so the sheriff can orchestrate all that, and then he'll work back and forth with the county commissioners.
So it's like delegating
delegate that. Anything you have, for the example, we were talking about the Boston situation. You'll have an EOC at in Boston right now. They will have organized that. And the mayor will be in the middle of that because it's such a big event and it's so nationwide. You'll probably have the governor there. I don't know if they necessarily have county commissioners, but they'll have the equivalents of a county commissioner that will be in the middle of that as well. But probably the Boston city officials will be running and organizing that, and they will make the declarations of emergency declarations to the governor and or to their county officials, and then their county officials will make that to their governor or their township officials. I'm not, when you get to the eastern side of the country,
parishes and stuff.
Yeah, it's different than the way we have it organized in the western part. But the equivalents of the county, they will be asked to. The mayor will request the county will request to the governor, And they'll all probably be in that same room right now. But ultimately, the city officials will be orchestrating that. Now, I understand the Boston situation, the Federal Bureau of Investigations have also been called in. They are taking the lead as the investigators in that. But everything else has to be organized and has to be taken care of. Our citizens need to be reassured. The citizens and the departments in the city have to still function and do their things. And so that will happen at a local level. And the Federal Bureau of Investigations will be working with the Boston police and the Boston fire department, police department, the Boston officials. They will be working very closely with them in getting this investigation taken care of. If it was something that happened here in Pocatello, we would basically have that same setup. And we're such a tight-fit, close-knitted community that you're going to have the mayor in the middle of that. You're going to have the county commissioners there. I'm not 100% sure, depending on how big of an event it is. We will definitely be in contact with the governor and let him understand, know what's happening, and be giving him updates, just like we did with the Charlotte fire. He will be getting updates, and he will be giving us suggestions. At the end of the day, it will come down to, in the city limits, what the mayor of the city feels is important to make sure happens here and is organized through the city departments. When it comes to the county, it will be the county will be organizing that. Oftentimes the county will ask the city for help. That's what happened in the Charlotte fire. And so when that happens, then the city will step up. We will not overstep our bounds in saying, look, this is what we're doing. It's in a county. That's a county issue, and if they ask us and they give us that authority, then we would probably end up taking that authority.
So a lot of reciprocity on both sides.
Absolutely.
Since yesterday, Mr. Mayor, of this horrendous terrorist attack, have you had any meetings or gotten with anyone to say, hey, we need to look at this a little differently? Maybe we should implement certain other things for our city, for our county, for our state?
No.
I know it's really early in the game.
The quick answer to that is no, but we have had meetings with the county officials, the city officials, county officials, on putting together an emergency plan. Every county is supposed to do that in the state and should have already done that. Every municipality is supposed to have that down. Unfortunately, a lot of times it's easy to say, well, if we have a problem, the mayor will be here, and then we'll have you know, the water department, the fire department, and we'll put them all together, and then we just all know what to do. And that's not the case. If you don't run through those drills, then you don't have that. If you think well, last summer we did that with the sheriff department, the police department. We ran through a major accident. We had a bus that rolled over. I mean, it was all staged, but we had a bus that rolled over, and we had shots fired and stuff like that. And every now and again, we will do a training with the sheriff's department, the city of Chubbuck, the city of Pocatello, on the police end of things, on what to do if that happens. We brought in the fire department, and I mean, we really did a live reenactment of something that could happen down there by Century High School. Every now and again, we will go into a high school here, and we will lock the school down. We just did that a few weeks ago. We locked the school down. We went through, and the role playing anyway, that we had a shooter in there, and so we went in there and we've done that, and so we actively do that. The concern is when we do that, it really scares a lot of people. I mean, people panic because there's a shooter, you got a school locked down, you got this. Well, it's not real, but we have to go through those trainings so that if it does, heaven forbid, happen, that we can react to it and not be so confused in that first few minutes and first few hours. If you look at the Charlotte fire, we can use that. That's new in our minds still. What happened was the first few hours, our fire department responded, BLM responded, and our fire department took command of that because nobody else would take command of it. And Dave Gates, our fire chief now, has been trained. I mean, very trained in what he does and how these emergency operations work. And so he took charge of it. The BLM also has a person in Dan was also there, and they both took charge and they managed that incident center together because we have different rules. Believe it or not, the federal rules and state rules are different.
How does it supersede? I mean, I understand,
Well,
you know.
Well, for example, on that fire, for example, the BLM has rules, the federal government has rules they have to follow. And they can't, if they go outside of those rules, then they're liable. Well, the city doesn't have those same rules. And so when the city wanted to do something, the BLM would say, you can't do that, because they are responsible for that fire as well. We had the decision to bulldoze a fire line there. We were out of people that were certified to do that. The BLM was.
In doing that, in doing that, didn't you guys save a lot of houses when you did that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We saved a lot of houses.
Because there was controversy on that.
There was. The federal rules say you cannot do that. You don't have a certified dozer driver and you don't have a certified dozer. And so I made the decision at that time that, you know what, I really don't care what your federal rules are. I have a city to protect. And I had a person that was not federally certified, but I had a person that was certified, a fire certified dozer. And I had 3 new dozers from CAT. And I said, send them up there, and they went and they did it. Ultimately, I believe, you can see right where the fire stopped,
right,
is where we dozed that. That fire would have got into the Johnny Creek area, and it would have cost an awful lot more houses and a lot more damage. The federal law said you couldn't do that. The municipal laws, I said, I have to protect this thing, and we're going to do it, and we did it. When we did that, all of the liability truly for dozing that came on us. The
vicarious liability?
Yeah. The BLM, federal government, had to say, if you do that, you know, we're not responsible for it, and you can't do that. But behind the scenes, they're saying, you know what, you got to do something to stop it. But they have to say, you can't do that because they're liable if you do it.
CYOA.
Yep. And so when we dozed that thing, it was all the liability was on the city at that time, you know. And I'm just grateful and thankful that nothing happened. But you do have to work with both those entities in order to make some of this stuff happen.
And it's a fine line. It takes people like yourself to make the command decision.
It's absolutely a fine line.
Yeah.
Did you feel that the Fed was a partner?
Absolutely, absolutely. The feds were a partner in that, but they weren't a partner in the whole thing of you can't do that, you can't do this. And then I had to step outside of the scope of what the feds can do and say, this is what we're doing. And of course, I had my fire chief there advising me and saying, look, we've got to do some of this stuff. And then it was a matter of making those decisions.
Yeah, they were willing to let things just roll and let things go willing, you know, as it may, and take more casualties, you know, because...
And the feds they're wildland firefighters. They're not house fire fighters. I don't know what the proper terminology is, but they don't fight residential fires. No. You know, they're there putting it out to save the trees. And if the house is in the way, I'm sorry, we're focusing on the trees to stop this fire.
So if we had, God forbid, if we had a terrorist attack here, or let's just say one of the trains that, then this, I'm sure this has been an issue with a lot of even the state level. If a train explodes, we know the train takes a lot of stuff through here.
Yeah.
You would have to react the same way of evacuating and
Absolutely.